Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for, September 11th, and it's always a memorable day, and I guess one of those days that will live in infamy, so to speak. We had an interesting start to the week here. Nice little push-up. Again, though, coming up against the ABM and unable to push through that upside resistance. We had seen shakeout falling. Pre-market has already started to move it a little bit. Most of this has just been short-term buyers pushing this up, and they're coming close to creating the opening of what we would call our little snake mouth. But the problem with that is you have to have the cyan dip a little more to get inside of it, or have it spike up and orange spike down. We're not even getting enough midterm buyers in that to really drive anything, so it's modest in between. And I think if we go back to it real quick, we definitely want to keep those levels in mind. And then you can look at the from the ABM yellows, you got the white at 79, the magenta at 82, and then all the way down at 70 for the green. And then of course you would hit the 76%. So it's always worth noting those. Again, NASDAQ, very similar performance, much weaker overall in general than the S&P. Euro holding right at the top edge of that band, and it's been proving to be a nice little support here within the weakness that it's experienced. So that's helping keep things going. Little bounce in treasuries. I just don't see that lasting very much unless the market starts to take a little bit downward of a revision. Oil not spiking, which is a positive thing, and actually any trail down is actually going to be helpful. We'll see how the hurricane coming up will have an impact on things that could create a little bit of skittishness, so we'll see if that has much of an impact. And again, we're not seeing much in the way of gold, particularly now. Gold rising here at this level certainly doesn't bode well for it at this particular point. Intraday, it's quite interesting as we started out with that huge pump. We got a lot of the positive extremes building in there, and once they spiked up, we ended up with some, finally, when we broke down here below the zero line, was the real strong catalyst. But we had an early boost of it right here. As it started to break, you just had cyan not really move too far, and steel was coming from underneath, so it was still kind of a little sketchy as it was going across there. But once it splintered out a little bit further, really exacerbated the move right to the 50%. And every time we came down and hit this 79 level, which was positive extreme from right here, and then we had the lower positive extreme that was expecting down near the 73, didn't quite get that far yet. Came pretty close right here, but they had a lot of support that came in. We get the little buy setups that came in down there, and that drove it up to about the 50% marker before we ended up with another DOC spread kind of split. And that took place right in about here, and then we just kind of flattened out towards the end of the day, finishing below the 23% at that particular point, and then pre-market, post-market of the close, but pre-market of the next day. We got a little bit of a spike. It's kind of traded flat in between there. We can see right now it's a little rising red in that, so a little bit of fight in between. Getting some variation in between there. So overall, I think we're just going to have to keep an eye on those support and resistance numbers and go with what we're seeing on DOC. We're starting to get a squeezing. That could be because of the pre-9/11 trade, and then also everyone's going to have their eyes glued on the hurricane and whether or not more of the eastern seaboard will get evacuated and how much rain and stuff that's going to produce. So that will be quite an interesting set of events. So all in all, just keep at it. There really wasn't anything of super duper note to put up there that was anything special, just the normal trades that we see coming along. And once again reinforces that situation where they talked about with the longs as it comes down, and you can see before they that orange crosses above the green. Usually where that ends, and unless you can get green above, in this particular case could not do that, and that's what led to the little retraces that happened after each of the different longs. So worth paying attention to that powerful trade. As always though, trade well, and I will put up any charts as they're relevant.